Hey everyone, it's Bergford with Bergford Performance Systems. Hope you are doing well. Bringing to you today the next part in our series on thriving through a crisis, mental skills for challenging times. I'm going to be speaking to those of you today who are considered in the midst of this pandemic non-essential workers, i.e. you're under stay-at-home orders, you probably have more time on your hands than ever before. Perhaps more time than you care to have on your hands, and it's driving you a little crazy. Now, there's a spectrum here, so if you have 5 kids and they're all at home at this, obviously at the same time, and you have, 3 dogs and 17 cats, and you're trying to manage all of that, you're in a little different position. The great thing about the information we're going to cover today, we're going to go over keys and principles and tactics that if you put these into practice, I really believe it's going to make a huge difference and allow you to accomplish a lot more and have a lot more satisfaction as you're walking through this very interesting time that we all find ourselves in the middle of. Toward the end of the video, I'm also going to be talking to those of you who maybe you've lost your job or your spouse has lost their job, maybe you've both lost your jobs or a business. Maybe you haven't lost your job, but there's some real uncertainty about the company you're going to be walking back into and what things are going to be looking like. So we're going to go over that as well. What I want to start with is our first key, which is find your focus. Now, I want to begin by telling you at the end of this video, set aside 10 minutes to list out all the objectives, goals, projects that you could be working on right now, that you have the capability of working on right now. I also want you to be thinking about maybe some things that previously had been on the back burner because, before this all came about, you were running and gunning and just didn't have a lot of time. But just like you might go into the basement to find something and you start shuffling through some boxes because you can't locate where the thing is at, and you start going through some other material and items and belongings that you'd totally forgotten about. Like I didn't even remember 90% of the stuff was down here. And this is a great time, isn't it, to really, really sift through and evaluate. That's why I want you to spend 10 minutes really thinking about this. What could I be focused on as a project or as projects right now? When you're done with that, I want you to go through that list and select 1 to 3 items that you're going to say, these are my most important priorities. Not necessarily the things that I would like to work on next or that I would be most enjoyable and I'd love to just get after it, but the top 1 to 3 that if you made some good headway here during this time and this transition we're all in, you would feel really, really satisfied by that. So that's what I want you to do next. Now, the issue that I want to point out leading into our next key is that when you have a lot of time on your hands, it becomes very easy to drift. So think about if you are on a sailboat, your sailboat, of course, out in the middle of the Caribbean, just, all the beauty and splendor of the world surrounding you, and a beautiful day, not too hot, but beautiful sunshine and nice cool breezes. You're just chilling, right? The sails aren't up, and you're feeling so good that you kind of nod off a little bit, right? And when you wake up 45 minutes later, if you didn't have an anchor down, are you in the same place you were when you fell asleep? You absolutely are not. Where are you going to be? Wherever the current takes you. And I don't think during this time we want to be wherever the current takes us because there's going to be a lot of tides and moving things. And I would encourage you to be more focused than that and make sure that you are minimizing drift. That is key number 2. And you can do that by making sure that you're giving more attention to managing the helm. Minimizing drift by managing the helm much better. And you're going to have to probably have some self-imposed structure in order to accomplish this. And so an example of that is maybe you could utilize planning periods every day. That maybe you do that on a weekly basis normal, but now you really need to do that every day, either the morning the day of or the night before. Spend 10-15 minutes lining out your next day just to ensure that you touch on the key areas that you're spending your time and focus and energy in the areas you need to, and you're not getting pulled off track by the current of life. Another way you can do this is scheduling dedicated time in your calendar to focus on and work on those objectives that we just talked about in the last key. to make sure that it's in your calendar, it's in your schedule, and it's going to get done. Now, the next part in here is that if you are at home with your spouse and kids and pets, and distractions abound and they are going to befall you. There's no getting around that. So the third key here is manage your distractions, because we can't always control again, the environment and what other people are doing in the environment around us. So if you're finding yourself kind of at the mercy of the day's events, if you do something like getting up before anybody else is awake and spending that critical time focusing in on your top priority items, that can be a huge key. Now, if the morning does not work for you or your brain doesn't function in the morning, you can schedule it at night. And part of this is just knowing your chronotype, right? Where during the day do you need to schedule your most important items that require you to be at your very best? And you've got to really be strategic in planning some of that. So it goes back to some of the self-imposed structure and just thinking through these things. Another thing about managing distractions, let me give you an example. So my wife was doing an exercise video on the main level of our house, which is where I normally do reading and study and a lot of my work and replying to emails and just lining everything out. And so I'm going like, okay, it's just gonna be loud in here. There's like music bumping in the background, she's jumping around doing different things. And what I did is I grabbed a set of headphones and I downloaded some white noise music. It's not really music, it's just white noise, but it was a white noise track. That's probably a better way to put it. And I just put those headsets in because I can get distracted if there's a lot of noise and hustle and bustle going on around me, especially sounds. And so just having that white noise playing, it was able to drown out a lot of the background stuff to where I was able to function in that environment. And I didn't have to completely have my entire day just in this upheaval and restructure everything. So that's another key. And if that doesn't directly apply to your situation, spend a couple minutes targeting the things that are getting you a little bit off track, and then asking yourself, how could I work around this? How could I be more effective here? How could I not disrupt my entire day, but get done what I need to? How can I be creative here? And just list out some ideas for yourself that are gonna apply to you, all right? So the next key here is stay in your realm of influence. Now, this is where I want to talk to those of you who, again, are maybe in some really tough times economically, uncertainty around your jobs, your profession, like you don't really know what's going on, and you might have moments of kind of freaking out a little bit. And what I would encourage you is keep this in mind. Stay in your realm, stay in your realm, stay in your realm of influence. Refuse to get sucked into focusing on things that you cannot control. I would encourage you to avoid that with just as much vigilance and vigor as you would avoid somebody at the grocery store who's hacking and coughing and sneezing and sweating profusely from what is obviously a fever. Okay, so I want you to avoid focusing on things that you don't have control over, just like you would avoid somebody like that in the supermarket. And one of the ways that we can really drive this in even deeper is to ask ourselves better questions. So instead of asking, you're looking at something crazy going on that you feel like I've got to address this in my life and I have to figure this out. Instead of asking, what am I going to do? Ask yourself, what can I do right now? Not, what am I going to do? What are we going to do? What can I do right now? You might find the answer to that question is, I can't do anything, which means you need to point your focus somewhere else and go to that instead. But you might find, actually, there are things that I can do right now. And if it's one small step in the right direction, take that action. Because when you are taking action, it tends to keep worry and fear and anxiety at bay. It really, really tends to help with that. Another question you could ask yourself is, what opportunities are available to me now that weren't even options before? That's a great question. That is a great question. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to, how many clients I've worked with that tell me about they lost a job And at the time, they were just freaking out. But it led them to walk into some opportunities and take on some things that they never would have even considered, because they just wouldn't have had the time to do it, or they wouldn't have had just the sort of forced motivation to go a different direction. And looking back on that, they're going, that was the best, sort of most pivotal crossroads I could have possibly come to in my life, and it made such a tremendous difference. So pay attention to the questions that you're asking yourself, and that are productive and things that are actionable and empowering, and are going to help focus you on what your opportunities are, not on all the things that you can't control. All right, so I hope that that makes sense. Next little comment I wanted to make here is just, again, an unfocused mind is a liability. And if you think of the mind like if you have the magnifying glass, you can use that to walk around and kind of look on the ground and sort of magnify all the dirt and the crud that's underfoot, and magnify the crap that's going on in your life. You could also take that magnifying glass and do what? Line it up just ever so precisely with the sun. And if you create that focus, that light energy coming through there, you can also start a fire. That tremendous focus of light and energy, if you're being directed, that can be very, very powerful and create tremendous and unleash tremendous energy for you. So again, an unfocused mind is a huge liability, but a focused mind is an unbelievably powerful asset, but it takes thought and intentionality to be in that place. All right, want to leave with a couple quotes here, and the first one is, of course, from Darwin, and it says, "It is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change." Now, again, survival is not mandatory, so you don't have to change if you want to. But if you are adaptable and you're willing, it's like the things that break tend to be the things that are inflexible or unflexible, whatever the proper term and verbiage is. But if you're not flexible, it's easy to break you. It's very difficult to break a rope because a rope is flexible. It's pretty easy to break a stick. And I think we want to keep that type of thing in mind as we're walking through this, because it's the most adaptive to change who are going to survive and ultimately thrive if you do it really well. And that's what this is all about, thriving through a crisis. All right. And the last quote here, of course, I could not end with anybody else other than the late, great, immortal Tupac. And he said, "If you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day." If you can make it through the night, there's a brighter day. Again, if you're in a really, really tough spot financially and just family and all the crazy things that might be coming against you, you feel like are just this onslaught, remind yourself of things that are true. Stay focused on that. Don't get caught up in your emotions and what those are telling you and how you feel. Tell yourself how to feel. Tell yourself what to believe. Tell yourself what to focus on. And I believe if you will do that, you can make it through some really, really tough times where other people just fall by the wayside because they didn't have the discipline to focus their mind and to home it in and to make sure that it was as sharp and powerful as it possibly could be. So again, I would encourage you, mental training, mental training, mental training. Focus on it. Do not leave it to chance. If you leave your body to chance, we all know what happens with that. It's going to be flabby and out of shape, and you're not going to be able to be athletic and do much with it. And it's the exact same way, again, with our minds, which is why I'm bringing you this information, because I want to give you so much value and have you focus on this. It will make a huge difference for you, I promise. Now, you guys, I hope that you have a great rest of your day, and I will talk to you soon.